Okay, it is 2, and I have a lot of content to cover, and I'm really hoping I'm going to get it all in on time, so I'm going to start. We good to go? Awesome. Cool. So, hi. My name is Anna, and as usual, if you can't see me down here, that's me up there. And I'm a senior UX designer at King. And you might not know what a UX designer is, and that's totally fine. By the end of this presentation, hopefully, you'll have a pretty clear idea. Also, I've got my Twitter handle and the GCAP hashtag up in the corner. If there's anything that you think is interesting, or you have questions, or absolutely whatever, use that at me, and I'll get back to you on that. So, my background is in board games. I actually started off in board games. That was my first job straight out of uni, where I had studied graphic design. And I had applied for that just because, well, you know, it seemed fun. So it was literally fun in games. And it actually turned out to be a lot more relevant for my career than I initially thought it would be. And I learned a lot about prototyping, about gameplay mechanics, you know, visual communication. And then about a year later, when I moved to Australia, I ended up working at EA, Fire Monkeys, completely unexpectedly, and it was incredible. And I worked on The Sims Freeplay for a couple of years, and then I was on Need for Speed up until now, where actually next week I move to Stockholm and I start my new job at King, working on the Candy Crush team. Thank you. So, what is UX design? UX stands for user experience. Also, I speak with my hands, so just deal with that. And it's the process of enhancing player satisfaction by improving the usability and the pleasure provided in the interaction between your player and your product. i.e., how easy is it to use, and does it spark joy? And it is all-encompassing. That means it includes everything, from when a player first sees or hears about your game on Steam or Twitter or whatever it is, to the intricate details of your most experienced players. And it's not just games. UX can be about absolutely anything. It can go from how easy it is to use a particular coffee machine or how complicated it is to withdraw money from an ATM. Anything that has anything that you're trying to do and interact with a product, all of that deals with, like, there's a UX designer that has had to work through that. Is there anyone, by the way, who saw any of my talks at GCAP last year? A couple. Oh, yay! Then you might recognize this little bit. In true UX fashion, I'm going to UX it for you. So if UX is the user experience, or the way, is the way in which a player interacts with our game, and this is our development team, then UX research is the name of the discipline that deals with analyzing and understanding players and identifying their needs and motivations. And UX design is the way in which we use this information to design the gaming experience. Make sense? Great. And although there's a lot of overlap between UX and UI, the two are distinctly different. UX design is about organizing information and how you present it to the player, and UI art deals specifically with the physical appearance of the UI. And they do often overlap, but generally speaking, be mindful that UX design and UI art, two different disciplines, sometimes covered by the same people, but the pool of knowledge is very, very separate. And we're going to be talking about UX design. And before we begin, you might be thinking, well, I don't work with UX, so why is this relevant to me? And it's true, not every studio has the luxury of having a dedicated UX designer, but I'm hoping that you'll all at least come away with an understanding of the importance of UX design and how it affects literally every aspect of the game, excuse me, the game and the development process. Everyone can put on a UX designer hat and implement aspects of it into their day-to-day process. Because, as we mentioned earlier, UX design is all-encompassing. It affects literally every aspect of gameplay and every role on the dev team too. So if you would imagine all of your roles as a Venn diagram of overlapping circles, UX design would cover all of it. And for that reason, it's important to everyone to be aware of it as well. So, okay, sure, it's important, she says. But how do we do it then? Well, one of the best ways in which we can improve the way in which we develop games is by learning a technique known as rapid prototyping. So rapid prototyping is a technique that's been designed to help developers create and validate quality ideas before jumping into a design prematurely. We find solutions through sketching, through getting feedback, and oh, that's about to die, that's not good. I'll deal with that later. And multiple design iterations, and the key word here is iterations. Actually, I'm going to switch that off to save battery. There we go. Above all else, it is an iterative process. And so this process can be broken down into 3 stages. So we've got our prototyping phase, where we create a prototype, the reviewing phase, which is where we test it, and the refining phase, where we take that information back and we go back to creating our next prototype. But in order to do that, we need to have a prototype, right? So, and we don't even know, okay, where do we begin? What's a good starting point for a prototype? Well, some of you might know this illustration. This was a great explanation done by Spotify to illustrate what an MVP, or a most viable product, is. And we immediately identify what the purpose or the goal of our product, and then we create something that fulfills that. So in this particular instance, we need to transport someone from point A to point B. And in that top section, we don't get there until the very end. And at that point, we've invested months, years into working on that thing. Instead, what we are going to be focusing on is this guy. So that little skateboard there still satisfies our needs for going from A to B. This is our early prototype. And prototypes can take on many forms for us in game dev. We can do digital prototypes, we can do paper prototypes if that's your jam. They both serve different purposes, and they're both useful in their own ways. But more on that later. Rapid prototyping is, it's a great tool to help your team think through and solve problems. And it helps you solve big, complex problems as well by quickly visualizing, and you get to test your designs, and then you use these to make informed changes. And it basically helps you stop agonizing about your problems, and you learn how to begin solving them, which is great, right? And you want to hear some more reasons why it's great? Because I got a bunch. You get to iterate and test quickly to get the answers you want, and you get to quickly create something functional. So straight away, you've got something functional that you can test right off the bat. You help your team define measurable goals, and you identify and correct gameplay issues well before they launch, rather than having to panic about things right at the very end. As a result, naturally, it'll save you time and money, and it'll reduce the risk of building something that no one wants. And we all know the story. We've got this big studio that creates a big, epic, shooty adventure, and you've got endless customization options and variations to suit your every need, and an endless amount of fantastic environments, when in fact, it turns out, all gamers really want is just to be an angry goose. So, as a result, you get to test the validity of your design, and you quickly get to see what works and what doesn't, and you get to make any necessary modifications early, instead of wasting time, spending months working on stuff that you'd probably have to cut later down the road anyway. Your team is clearly aligned on what your objective is, and often, I know in bigger teams as well, the business side of your team and the creative team's interest might not always be aligned, and so trying to convince a PM to do things when your designer or an artist wants something completely different. It's a little bit difficult sometimes to get everyone aligned on what it is we're actually going to be focusing on. So by prototyping early, you get to see what the player needs, and everyone can work in the same direction. And as a result, your team knows how to define a successful deliverable. And we can focus on what's important and not on minutiae. So you want to be thinking, what's the core gameplay mechanic that we're trying to teach our players, rather than, I don't like the color of this button. But most importantly, by testing and listening to our players' needs, we learn to create better and more meaningful gaming experiences for them. Cool, so when should you be doing it? All the time. So if you're in pre-production, great, awesome. Before you start building anything, start working on prototypes. And if you're in live service, Great. As you're doing every single new feature, as we're going to start developing and integrating new stuff into existing games, oh, you're the best. Thank you. I'm going to give you this one. Oh, I can do that. If you're in live service, you can do that as well, and you should be. Where was that? Yep. So invest in this time as a team. You want to take a step back from whatever it is you're doing right now. Give me that. Cool. Take a step back from whatever it is you're doing. Take a week. I'm serious. Take a week. Even if you're an indie group of 5 people, and I know every single producer in this room is now hyperventilating, then a week? I'm crazy. Serious. Take the time to do this, because 1 week's work now is nothing compared to having to pivot and panic 1 month before launch. So what are we going to do today? We're going to learn how to draw useful sketches. We're going to translate those into wireframes, and we're going to learn how to create clickable prototypes for them, and why they're all very important steps. And I'll also be doing a little practical demo in Adobe XD. Cool, so let's get into it. It's this one, this guy. Thank you. Sketches. Coincidentally, all of the things that we said we're going to do are the things that I'm going to be, these are the things we need to do. Thank you. Gucci. Great, we're going to start off with sketches. So, sketches, what are they? They're literally just that. They're just sketches. They're basic scribbles to communicate an idea. Quick idea vomits for presenting the important information of your concept. It's the backbone of your features content. And the first thing I learned during my very first week at EA was to never, ever, 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 ever go into a meeting without pen and paper. Very, very, very important. I'm personally a huge fan of the white lines notepads. The paper is light gray, and they've got white lines on them instead, which lets your sketches and your annotations stand out afterwards when you scan them, which you can do with their own little app, which is free. And what it does is that it just picks out all the white corners, and it automatically fixes your perspective or your warping, it fixes your contrasts, and you just get perfect scans of your drawing or your annotation straight into your computer. Super, super handy. So why should we be sketching? So often people have different ideas and images in their own heads. Getting something quickly onto paper helps align the team on what we're all thinking. And that means that we're all on the same page, and it ensures that we know exactly what we're working on, so that nobody wastes time working on the wrong thing during the coming days. And it helps the entire team know what the requirements are going to be as well. So you can estimate for scope, and you can keep your feature realistic. For example, oh, bam, do we need a leaderboard? You know, that means that my engineers have to be mindful of, do we need a cloud database? Or do the PMs need to balance a new form of currency? If we suddenly decide, the designer says that there's a new currency, great. If that's in there, the PMs go, great, I need to balance that. If we've suddenly got a timeline with lots of different prizes, that means the art team can go, that means we need 15 assets that we need to create and blah, 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 blah. So it actually helps everyone scope accurately, not just yourself, everyone. And it also helps with brainstorming, because seeing something written down will trigger other ideas as well for people. And there's a great quote by a UX designer called Justin Baker that's always resounded with me, which is that a UX designer's job is to solve problems, not push pixels. So that ties us back to our sketches, because they don't need to be pretty. I struggle to draw stick figures, honestly. Like, I am not an artist, and that's fine. It's fine, and in fact, it's kind of good. I encourage you, be bad at art, it's fine. Because if you're just doing that, you're focusing your team, so you're encouraging your team to focus on the actual content rather than the appearance of it or the execution. Because again, I repeat, here to solve problems, not push pixels. What we're trying to do is just put the information there, and I usually say that I play visual Tetris with information. Like, that's my job description. I just play Tetris with stuff. And so you want to get in the basics. So draw your boundaries, so the frame, the browser window, your phone interface, whatever it is. And then just include your core content. Only add the relevant details. And try lots and lots and lots of different variations or layouts. And make sure that you have a list of requirements. This is important as well. So ask your designer or meeting members or whoever's providing you with the content if there's anything else that needs to be included. And keep that list of requirements handy so you can check off that everything has actually been included in your sketches. Again, a couple examples of some of the sketches that I did while on The Sims. It's not pretty, and the final thing ended up looking completely different, but that's just to illustrate. That's literally all you need. And so, some tips for that, you can use the double diamond approach. So there's a UX kind of technique known as the double diamond approach about how we can work and create things. So it starts off with idea generation. So you brainstorm and you get lots of ideas. You go wide, then you go narrow, you go wide, you go narrow. So lots of ideas, and then you refine it. So you pick one you like, and you refine that, and you work on it. You define what it is you're actually creating, and then you develop that idea. Again, go wide, you brainstorm, do lots of variations on it, and then you refine that again until you have your final deliverable. And then set a time frame. If you're in a meeting already, great, you have a time limit. If not, maybe put aside 30 minutes to sit and just do this. Having a time limit helps you curb all the chaotic thoughts. It helps you focus and just get on with it. And then after your meeting, if you need to refine your sketches, clean them up, maybe add some annotations if you're going to be sharing them. That might be useful so that other people know what these little scribbles are. And then ask for feedback. Super, super, super important. Get everyone to criticize it and find the holes. Where does it fall apart? You want to find these problems as early as possible so that you don't find them later on when you're actually building it. So at this point, this is where you want to start doing it, because it's so much easier to redo a 5-minute sketch than it is to rebuild something that you've spent a week doing. So get everyone to criticize and pull it apart and tear it and whatever at this point. And then iterate, fix it. Keep over and over and over again. And save them. Please, 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 please save your sketches. Put them up on the walls. Let your whole design team see them. Sorry, let your whole team, your whole dev team see them. Because not only does it help everyone align on what it is we're creating, so we know what it is we're doing and it increases visibility, but also it helps generate more ideas. Maybe someone has a better solution that you just haven't thought of. But also it lets you see how your feature has evolved over time. So digitalize them, because we're all going to be throwing these papers away. So keep digital copies of these. It's really good for archiving, but also it's really good for postmortems. And that lets you see how the ideas evolved, how much scope has inevitably creeped, identify what you struggled with, and identify what you did well. Maybe you didn't have to pivot. Maybe you did such a good sketching process that you nailed it straight away in the early thing and you just had a cruisy dev process. Awesome. But as I mentioned before, Sketch is also really good to help with scoping. So use your sketches to scope realistically. Everything's going to seem super simple in the beginning, and then you start building and you realize that there's so many other things that you didn't think of. So yeah, really use them to reduce the scope of your game's MVP. I'm serious. When you're at this stage, halve it, and I'm serious, halve it again. And you'll see later on the importance of this. Seriously. Serious. Really, I am serious. You'll understand the gravity by the end. All right. Great, wireframes. Another fancy word for something that is in fact super simple. They're literally just a set of boxes and lines used to present the functional elements of your game or feature. They're just your final sketches, so that thing that you refined and fixed up and annotated and sent off to your team, your wireframe is literally just that, but digital. Nothing scary at all. So that was the sketch I had before, that then, we refined it, we changed it, it turned into that, and then the final product ended up looking nothing like either of those, but it's an illustration of basically that's what it is. And this was actually one that got refined really well, and we analyzed and we knew exactly what it is we were doing. So you can see that that ended up being a super easy creation process for me that year. So by looking at those wireframes across the top, this was for the Christmas update 2017, I think it was. By looking at those wireframes across the top, my art team can immediately see How many character renders do we need? How many prizes do we need? My designers know what are the strings we need, what's the string length, what are the, how do I have running text, is it just 2 words? My engineer can look at that and they know exactly, cool, this button goes over here, this button goes over here we have a timer, over here we have this, and they can hook everything up. This is so easy to build from afterwards. Everyone knows exactly what it is they're doing. So what are clickable prototypes then? It's simply a collection of all of those wireframes that you have, but put together with functionality built in. So your transitions, your buttons that link to pages, your expandable widgets, drop-down menus, everything that helps simulate the game's flow. And it requires no code and requires no art. And you can do this without wasting any of your team's precious time and resources. So all of you who are freaking out about the time thing, see, this is good. And we know the brutal truth is time is money. So if you can do this now without wasting the rest of your team's time, instead of having to build something 6 months and then having to pivot afterwards, this is where you want to be fixing stuff. But, I hear you say, but why? It just seems like a lot of extra work. Why can't I just start building it? Because it helps us plan the functionality of the feature, as I said before everyone starts spending all that time building it. You get to click through the game and you get a genuine feel for what the gameplay is going to be like. So, how many clicks does it take to do a certain thing? Is all of the required information visible to the player? Is it presented in easy to understand segments so you're not overloading someone straight away with information? Does the player even know where to click? Are they able to set goals for themselves? E.g., like, I want to unlock this particular prize, how do I do it? Or I need to change my weapon, or I need to empower this particular boost in order to clear this level. That's what I mean by setting goals. But also another thing that's often forgotten is that required states for things become very apparent while doing clickable prototypes, because looking at a static black-white image, it's really easy to just forget that you're going to need more of that, because you're just like, cool, it's just a button, it's just a widget, it looks like that. I can do that in, I can build that in 5 minutes. But then when you start clicking through a prototype, you go, oh, wait, we actually need to illustrate that's a locked state, we need an unlocked state, we need an active state, we need a consumed state. That little thing can take so many different variations and forms. So it's so easy to actually click through a prototype beforehand because it helps you with estimations. So you're not suddenly there going, oh, shit, I said this was going to take me 1 day, actually it's going to take me a week. So in your wireframes, it's crucial for helping with realistic time estimations and managing your scope. Which brings us to part 3 of your talk, which is how do we make them? So there's a lot of tools out there for wireframing and prototyping. There's, just a few. There's so many more. And some of them provide extra functionality. So if you know how to code and you really want to customize your prototypes, then, there's those, but they'll often come with a cost as well. But many of these are free. And like that last one there, Marvel, for example, they even have an app for really easy prototyping too. It's called POP, which stands for Prototyping on Paper, and it lets you create prototypes directly on your phone. And for everyone photographing, I'm actually going to include a slide at the very end of it. I mean, by all means, photograph. But just letting everyone know, I will have a slide at the end of it with a Google Doc link that has all of the references and resources that I've got here, everything collated in one single link that you can save and click and use afterwards. So this app lets you create digital prototypes directly in the app itself. And you can even, if you want, you can even scan your physical drawings and work from there and create little touch areas and stuff. It's really, really simple, highly recommended. They're constantly building and exploring on it as well. It's free. But for working on a day-to-day basis, I personally am a huge fan of Adobe XD. So that's what I'm going to be using today to demonstrate some quick prototyping. It's free, and because it's part of the Adobe team, they've got big budget, big team, it's very stable. And they're constantly evolving and adding new features on it. So I think 2-3 years ago when I first tried it out, it was really bare bones, and today it's a monster of a program. So yeah, it's really good to work in because you can create stuff super, super quickly. You can create a rough screen in literally seconds, which I'll show you just now. And it's also got good integrations with other Adobe software. So you can import vectors from Photoshop, or you can import things from After Effects. So if you work in an Adobe environment, really it should be a no-brainer. This is not a sponsored talk, but Adobe, if you're here, you're very welcome to sponsor me. But instead of me talking a bunch of how easy it is, so let's just demonstrate it. Let's create something right now. And this is a game that I suspect you're all familiar with, or at least most of you have at least heard of it. For the sake of time, instead of creating something completely unknown from scratch, I thought I'd just recreate something everyone knows. Because it makes it easier for you to know what it is I'm building and why, and what each thing is. So, say I was to create this completely fictional game about crushing candy. What would I need? I would need a main map, maybe pop out the settings menu, create an inventory, a little pre-level pop-up, the core gameplay screen, and then a post-game pop-up. That's a basic run-through of the basic functionality of Candy Crush. Cool, so let's go. And every time I do this, that goes, oh, that was real quick this time, great. So let's jump into Adobe CC. Can everyone see that? Sweet. So I've taken the liberty of including a sketch that's, of course, completely fictional, of this very fictional inventory that we've definitely never seen before, and we definitely do not know what the final screen is going to look like. But before we get in there, let me give you a tour. So over here we've got our assets. So that little button down there will pop out your assets menu, and you can quickly create a color palette. So if I was to create something and I want to make it bright red and I want to have that as one of my core colors, or if you're working on a game where you already know what your color scheme is, great, you can quickly create a whole bunch of things here, and you drop that, and then, I want this to be a nice little ocean green, great, we're going to add that, bam, that's our color palette. And the importance of that is because if I've created a bunch of things and they all use this color, and I decide, actually, I don't want to use green, I want it to be blue, then I can just go in here and I change my swatch, and it updates every single instance of this swatch in the entire program, in the project. Words are hard. So yeah, so that's really important and useful. Let me delete these. For me, right now, when I'm doing my initial wireframing, I like to work in grayscale because, again, we're trying to focus on the actual content and not on like colors and people going, oh, I don't like that shade of orange. I don't care if you don't like orange. That's not the point. So grayscale, very important. Also because it helps you think about visual hierarchy, contrast and all those kinds of things. Another thing we have is character styles. So if I've got a little thing and I want it to say header, then I can actually just click, click that, and that is the header setting that I've selected. If I've got a different font or whatever it is, so let's just run down that one, great. So if that's my header, it'll automatically update everything in the project as well. And let me change that back. If click on another one, description, it'll turn into the description character style. But anyone who's worked with InDesign will be familiar with that. And then we move down to our components. So components, they used to be called symbols. They let you save design elements like icons or buttons or whatever it is and reuse them anywhere in your product. So I can jump out little things if I want to have a little settings menu down here. If I want to have little stars across my design, they automatically just have things, a little exit button that you can populate your entire product with without having to spend lots of time. Just, saves you time. And again, as with everything else, if I was to change something, so if I was to change the color of that star, I do that, then it changes all of them. So it's really good for keeping your iconography consistent. And if you change a cloud or a header or whatever it is, just bam, you don't need to think about it. It updates all of them instantly. So I guess let's start creating this inventory real quick. We'll create a little rectangle, and then we're going to pop some rounded corners on there. I'm going to make it this color. I'm going to get rid of that border. I should have probably kept my header, but that's okay. Inventory. And excuse me while I just talk out loud as I do this. let's grab you down here, and we're going to write this fancy I can't type now. Descriptive text goes over here. And we're excited about it. Sweet. Maybe grab that divider. I'm going to make it a little chunky. And then we get to one of my favorite parts of working in Adobe XD. So this thing here, if I've got a whole list of things that I want to be repeated, you know, for example, in the inventory, or if I want to have a whole bunch of missions listed out, or if I've got a whole bunch of panels with just lots of the same content, and I don't want to sit there and copy paste, so then, you know, you change one and then you have to manually change them all. This is amazing. So I can just create more or less, how big is this going to be? This one, oh, whoops. Grab you across here. And I mean, what you also can do, you can also just grab your image and you chuck it on there, you reduce the opacity, and then you lock it and you know exactly where you're going to be working. But I haven't done that, so we're just going to wing it and hope that everything sits in the right place. But yeah, similar to Photoshop and Illustrator, it has all the same functionality. And this is where our image of our icon is. If anything's uncertain, please just yell at me, because I've worked on this so much, so I just assume that everything makes sense. But if it doesn't, just tell me. Also, this screen is a lot bigger than my laptop screen, so everything's very small. Cool, that looks about right. No, I want that to be a pill shape. When I put in placeholder numbers and things, I tend to use numbers like 8 or 9 or 3, the big round numbers, because it takes up the maximum space of something, so that the PMs know exactly how many numbers they can fit into a particular thing, or yeah, it helps for balancing and for everyone to know accurately how many digits can our currency have, for example. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Kara said yes. I know that you understand it because I worked with you. You know exactly what I mean. 3? No, that's too chunky. Let's bring that down to 2. Copy, paste, flip it across, group, and we're going to group, and we're going to center it all. Beautiful. All right, so this is my first one, and I want a bunch of them. So we go over here, we click this magic button, which is our repeat grid. Magic. And it gets better, it gets better. Oh, no, wait, I screwed up. It gets better. I can just drag the space. By the sounds of this, I'm going to have someone in there. It's like, are you guys watching porn in there? What are you doing? Sorry, Mom. And it gets better. Cool, so we've got that here, and just general thing to be mindful of when you have scrolling things. Make sure that you don't have it perfectly cut off like that, because then the players don't know. They might think that that's all the content there is. So a little thing to always be mindful of is to cut off your content if you want them to know that they should be scrolling down. Just a little thing. Let's center all of this. Yeah, so the best part about these, though, is that if I go in and I decide that actually I want to change this one to this color, it updates all of them. If I go in and I want to just change the text, it updates all of them at the same time. So I decide I want it a little smaller, and I'm going to put it over there. Everything gets automatically updated, and that goes for all of them. If I grab this one and I decide that I want it to be solid black, that's fine. Everything is in a cohesive grid. It is amazing. Let's bring you back to white as you were. Sweet, so that is the basic thing of the prototype. How long have I gone, by the way? How much time do I have left? I got 15, great. I'm going to throw this back into this document that I've already prepared. So over here you see it's all the same things that I've saved. Over here I've quickly created the main saga map. We've got our little nav bar, our progress thing. I've only put in the level that, just one level because we're not trying to clutter everything with literally everything. As I said before, only put in the backbone, only put in the important information. Over here we've got the buttons I have on the side. It's the inventory, our boosters, and the leaderboard. A little settings menu down here. And then we go into the settings overlay. Ooh, I should not be going there. Also, if you want to be adding new pages, like literally, you just click and it'll create them for you. You see it says iPhone X over here, so this is because I've got a Google Pixel, so I've been signing for that. But you can change all of that down here in your artboard sizes as well. If you were to create a new document, you can create anything from mobile. You have all your tablet things, all your web things, just like Photoshop and Illustrator and everything else nowadays. Super, super easy to use. So yeah, there we've got the little overlay here for our settings thing, and then we get to our inventory, and I'm going to pop my inventory on here, copy paste that in, and then we've got the little pop-up that I've drawn completely from my mind, and this is our core gameplay screen, and our post-level pop-up. Yay, look at these stars, I did well. Cool, and then this little button here, we move into prototype. So XD has two different core workspaces. You got your design workspace where you do this. You create all this stuff. It's a little bit Illustrator-ish. And then prototype is where you actually start doing the important stuff. And this is where, and you can see, I've already started linking things. And it's actually really, really, really powerful. You can do all kinds of animations and interactions and transitions and things. For the sake of this, because it's simple, the animations I've got are really, really basic. But you can customize the most incredible things right here in XD. So I'm going to grab this inventory button and I'm going to drag it to my inventory. And we're going to go transition, no, overlay, because that's just going to swoop in. And we're going to have it slide right. Done. And then that links to that, and then that links to that, that links to that, that links to this one. And then this last button, we're going to grab that and we're going to bring it right back to our home screen. And that's going to be a transition. And that's just going to dissolve normally. We don't want anything to slide. Cool. So then we press play. And here we go. And this is our thing. You can see your mouse changes wherever it's clickable. So I click on my settings thing. There's my little overlay. If I click on my inventory, there's the inventory we just made. If I click on this is the level I want to do. Here's my pop-up. Yay! I press play. I finish my game. There's my thing. I got 2 stars. Yay! How unpredictable. Who would have known? And we go back to our main menu. Awesome. So, yeah. Another couple of really important things, actually, before I forget. I'm just checking my notes. XD has something really, really, really useful. A few extra things. So over here, you've got something known as UI kits. So if you click these, I already had it preloaded in case I didn't trust the internet, because I don't trust the internet. So you have the Apple design resources here. So they actually provide you with all of their icons, their fonts, or their design conventions, everything that you would need to design for iOS, for Mac, for all watches, whatever it is that you're designing for. They've got all of those things there. You can just download them and open them and access them and copy paste them straight into your own documents. It's so useful. And instead of building your own icons or spending an hour trying to build something, a cogwheel, I can't be asked building a cogwheel for my settings menu that I had over here. I legit went into one of those UI kits and grabbed a cogwheel because they're free. Use them. Everything in Adobe XD is made to save time and make your life easier. It's almost like it's made by a UX designer or something. And then something else, device preview. So if you hit this little button, and so, yeah, you won't be able to see it on my phone, But if I hit device preview, that actually connects to your phone. So you can, in the same way that I did the live preview here, you can actually live preview it on your device straight away. You can give that to someone and they can just start clicking and testing. So that is your testing right there. And also that's useful because you get to feel what it's like to actually play it in your hands. You know, are your gestures intuitive? Are your icons too small? Is your text legible, or is your text too big? Sometimes when we work on PC, we make you know, real big text and you put on the thing, it's like, oh, that's huge. So, you know, scale all that down. You get to see actually how it feels and plays in your hands. Also, you get to see, are my fingers covering important information as I'm playing through my game? Because playing something on a phone or on a tablet or whatever it is very different to clicking with a mouse and having a mouse going across your screen. So that is, yeah, absolutely do it if you're designing for mobile. And another incredible thing that it does, I feel like I've said this so much, but it's true. If you click here, if you click share and then you go share for development, you can export what are known as design specs for your entire team. That means that, and it's literally one click. Automatically, it just blurts out a whole bunch of stuff. So the rest of your team can access everything from their browser. They can grab your design information from colors, typography, your icons, to you know, hex values for your like actual exact shades, the image dimensions, so like exactly how big is this pixel, is this image, how many pixels is it, how big is this header, how wide is this widget, everything is in that. And it also includes like your padding measurements, absolutely everything. So your engineers are gonna love you because you're gonna save them so much time. And again, as with everything in Adobe XD, once you do any changes and you hit publish again, it automatically updates everything for everyone. So it just populates that same link and everything gets updated. It is so convenient. So yeah, that's Adobe XD, and you see how quickly it is to work and do things in it. So back into my presentation when we go. Just my, nope. Yes, great. Just the closing notes. Okay, so we have a prototype, yay. Now what? So we can start reviewing it, and that's your testing phase. Testing, as we all know, is important. Actually, let me rephrase that. It is crucial, imperative, because you're designing a game for your players, not for yourself. It is so important that you go out and you test things, because how is a game going to be successful if nobody wants to play it? And you don't know whether it's going to be good or not until you actually go out and you get other people who are not in your brain and know what you know to actually test your product. And how do we test it? Well, conveniently, this happens to be the talk that I gave at GCAP last year. This is one of them. It's on YouTube, and yes, of course, there's a link to that in the Google Doc at the end. That was a hands-on UX research workshop that was about how to carry out effective user testing. And I actually encouraged everyone to come to that workshop with their own game in mind. And then by the end of it, they'd learned a bunch of testing techniques, and they created tangible test plans so that they can go out, they can implement this test plan and go out and actually test these things straight away. So big scary thing about how we test stuff, it's all there. I think it's half an hour, 40 minutes. Check it out. I personally thought it was a lot of fun, so yeah. And then, which brings us to the very end of our little UX design loop, which is our refining. So now that we've prototyped it, we've tested it, we can now go take all of that information back to our team. And then we iterate, we make our prototype better, and we go back into prototyping again. And so forth until we have a final product that we're happy with and that's ready to be released. So to summarize everything we learned today, rapid prototyping helps you solve big complex problems by quickly visualizing it, by testing your designs and using them to make informed changes. And informed is the key word there. Rapid prototyping helps you not get caught in the details. It teaches you to work quickly, fail fast, so that you can find solutions early. Because as I've said throughout this whole presentation, we're not here to push pixels, we're here to solve problems. And that's that. Thanks. I've even got 5 minutes for questions. I'm so proud. Cool. Are there any questions? Yes.
Can you support interaction design? For example, you showed the Candy Crush Match and Blast tiles, but how would you use it as a designer to, or can you use it as a game designer to illustrate interactions as well?
The question was, can we use it to replace interaction design? Yes. I mean, it is just a prototyping thing, so you're not going to be able to plug in, you know, if like the information, the numbers aren't going to update. You're not going to get unique results. Everything is hard-coded. So whatever you have hard-coded, all your variations, your options are the only thing you're going to have in there. But yeah, you can simulate all kinds of different interactions and things. There's a really awesome thing that they implemented at the beginning of this year, I think it was, which was auto animate, which helps you, like you can create different variations of a screen and it'll automatically change between them. It like figures out what your element is and automatically changes it to the other one. So you can customize so much in that. Hi.
What's your experience doing this with VR, if any?
The question was if I've got experience with VR. I do not. I have never worked in VR. I'm sorry. Does anyone here work in VR? There you go. Oh. Chat to those people. They'll probably be able to help you far more than I can, unless it's, yeah. Oh, sorry, I can't. Yeah, thanks. Yes?
You were talking about getting feedback from everybody around you for your prototypes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, I'm sure this is probably included in the video that you've got online, but is there a good kind of way that you go to get all of these prototypes out, to get all of your feedback? Like what's your export pipeline, I suppose? What does that look like when you're sending it around to people for feedback?
So the question was, just repeating it for the microphone, the question was how I go about preparing my prototypes for gathering information. Is that feedback like for the team or?
Yeah, for the team, for your
externally?
you've done. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at EA, we're really, really fortunate that we have a team that handles all of that for us. We've got a UX researching team, and we have a UX lab, they still have a UX lab in there. Yeah, that is covered in the talk, but basically have a space where you can invite people to come in so that you can do that one-on-one. Because you're going to be wanting to ask questions. You're going to be wanting to watch where they struggle, what they struggle with, because sometimes what they say is very different to what's actually happening. You know, they're frustrated because of this, but what they're actually frustrated with is that they don't know how to do the thing that they're doing. So it's important that you're doing these face-to-face so that you can watch exactly how people struggle with them. So I would prep by having a room there that's devoid of distractions. Sign your NDAs, make sure you signed NDAs. There's a whole bunch of lists of things that I say about stuff that you should do to prepare. But yeah, have a room, be devoid of distractions, and then sit there and actually watch people play it. Record it is very important because you're going to go back and sometimes you're going to have to tell the lead designer or whoever it is that's making decisions that what they want to do is just not working. And it's very hard to convince people to let go of something that they care passionately about. But if you've got stuff recorded and they can see how people are struggling with a particular idea, that helps them understand and empathize. Oh, okay, I get it. We need to change this particular thing. It doesn't mean that we throw the whole thing, it doesn't mean that we throw the whole thing away. It just means how do we break this down and teach players how to do it? Yeah, how are we going to teach people to do it so we still get the same feeling or the same experience that was initially designed? Yeah, that was a lot of information, sorry.
I don't need a microphone, sorry. Sorry. Are there any built-in analytics into those programs so that if you give a prototype to someone, you can track which buttons they click first and stuff like that?
Yeah, so there is actually a little recording thing. If I go back to this real quick and I do that, you can actually record stuff. So this will, it'll track everything. Oh God. So this immediately turns into a thing that tracks where you've clicked and what you did. So it'll then export a video that you can then save. Yeah, let's not do that now. but you can actually keep recorded things. So if you're not able to sit there and manually, like face-to-face with someone, you can send them that and still record their interaction with it. So, yes. Ren had a question at the back.
I'm sorry, almost time.
Oh, all right. Well, come grab me. I'll be here all day. I'll be outside just now. And thanks.